great day, attractive thinker and visual encouragers around the world. We are so delighted to be back with you today for another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance. Dr. Toni Hatton here, your identity coach and get to the root specialist at The Attractive Thinker, where we support new and aspiring entrepreneurs in starting their business ideas and in writing their books. And we support you with the tools and the skills that you're going to need to do that with mental healing, mental strength, and mindset maintenance. Today, I am excited to share this message with you. But first, I'd like to welcome my co host, Tichet Bradshaw, to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance.
Happy Mindset Monday, everybody. Guess what? You know it. We made it. And we'll make it again and again. This week, we get to do what we've never done, go where we've never gone, and have all that we deserve to have. And we sure are going to get that. It's a great day to be alive.
It is a fantastic and amazing day to be alive. If you haven't already done so, write that down in your Attractive Thinker notebook. It is a great day to be alive. I want to encourage attractive thinkers and visual encouragers around the world. Make sure you go on Amazon and get your copy of the Attractive Thinker Transformational Experience. It is a 726-page hardcover full color experience that will inspire you, motivate you, give you clarity, heal those levels that need healing so that you can move forward in your life no matter what page you turn to. And that's why I'm so excited that attractive thinkers have their copy, because no matter what page you turn to, you're going to find something that's going to uproot what is holding you back and keeping you from launching your business ideas, your creativity, the healing work that needs to take place in your life in order for you to continue to advance into new levels of potential for yourself, new levels of being. You know, everything is about the goals that you have. It's not so much about what you want to acquire. It's not so much about your desires. It's about who you are. Who is this person that's reaching for this goal or pursuing this or taking the action in your life towards your goal? Because it's about who you are, who you be, your energy, your aura, your attitude, your mindset. This is what's making decisions for you. This is what's either attracting or repelling opportunities in your life. This is what's supporting you in making your decisions and your choices. Today we're going to be talking about sharing with you an opportunity for you not to miss the change that's taking place in your life, because it's easy to be missed. This change is something that you don't want to miss because it's very defining. Defining moments have an impact on us. And if you've been following Beyond the Break for some time now, you've heard Tisha and I talk about change. You've heard us talk about pain. You've heard us talk about faith and hope. You've heard us talk about holding on and never giving up and living life beyond the break and guarding your heart and when your heart breaks. You hear us talk about all of this all of the time. And these changes that we're going to be talking about right now that takes place in all of our lives, sometimes they can be missed if you're stuck in a season and not understanding that the season has changed. Shishette, talk to us today about the shifts that take place. See, because last week, attractive thinker, if you paid attention or wrote down or took notes on the episode from last week, we said public service announcement. It's harvest time. And this week we're saying, don't miss this change. Talk to us, Tisha.
Absolutely. What we have to remember that one of the things that is constant in life is change.
Mm-hmm.
Life is always changing. We have to understand how it's changing, whether it's changing for the better or not. We have to understand what makes a change takes place, right? But the thing that we always talk about, Dr. Toni, is being aware, awake, and paying attention, right? We pay attention to everything. We told you pay attention to your energy, pay attention to everything that's around you. And the reason why we do that is because when anything in your life shifts or changes, you want to be aware of the what, the why, and the how it changed, right? So when we say don't miss this change, we're saying life is moving forward, right? Life is going on. Things are happening. And we don't want you to be so caught up in the pain that you just experienced that you miss the transition, that you missed the opportunity for a greater, better life, one that's more abundant, that you don't miss the calling on your life. There's a call for a lot of us to come up higher, to get better, to do more, to be greater. You know, there's a call for us, and a lot of times the pain that we experience in our life comes, believe it or not, from that call. You know, when you walk in power, Dr. Toni, you always say greatness doesn't always feel great, right?
Yes,
When
yes.
you are called to walk in power, there's some things that you're going to have to give birth to. There's some things that you're going to have to go through in order to transition from the person who heard the call to the person who answered the call, right? And so when you transition from the person who heard the call, the person who heard the call had a certain life. They had a certain lifestyle, a certain beliefs, a certain type of faith. They had certain habits, certain habit of thought. You know, they had a certain mindset. The person that heard the call, that when you transition from the person that heard the call to the person that answered the call, that mindset then came up another level. Those habit of thoughts then change. Sometimes your environment may not always change right away, but it will change. The internal has to happen first. The internal environment has to change. And the reason why I say that is because you can move from place to place, but if your mindset and your habit of thought have not changed, you're going to create the same thing over and over again. It'll be the same game, different face, right? And we don't want to keep creating the same situations over and over and over again. We want something new. So when the person who heard the call understood that there was a call, they had a responsibility that they had to answer. And that responsibility is, hey, okay, I know that I can't take all that I have into this. So what do I need to take with you? What kind of mindset do I need to take from that lifestyle to this lifestyle after the call? So for one thing, we had to accept the calling, right? And that had to come with some self-acceptance. We had to accept who we are, accept who we are not, accept our power, accept the idea of us moving, accept the fact that there's some things that's going to have to drop off, accept the fact that there's sometimes we're going to have to let go, some things we're going to have to acquire along the way, some things we're going to have to let go, some people we're going to have to let go. Things are going to have to change, right? One thing we know from the person who heard the call to the person who answered the call, what we saw in that transition was their willingness to change, right? We see the willingness to accept the call. We see the willingness to fight, to stand. And sometimes that's all it takes, Dr. Toni, is the willingness to stand, the willingness to walk, the willingness to accept the power. You know, sometimes accepting power is not easy. When you heard the call at first, you might have not have thought you could do this or have this or be this. You might have said, well, surely you meant to call somebody else. You know, sometimes when you hear the call, all you can offer up is your limitations, right? But then there's something in you that ignites, I want to say. And so we have the boldness to walk despite feeling our limitation. Our limitations ends up dropping off a little bit along the way, as we transition from the person who heard the call to the person who answered. And then after we become the person who answered the call, we then shift to the person who is the call, right? You're walking in your calling. So you heard the call, then you answered, and now you're walking in it. So three different transitions took place, and a change happened in all of them. What change happened from the person who heard the call, from the person who answered, to the person who's walking in it? There's some major transitions happen, kind of like what we always talk about, giving birth. You're giving birth to the person who's walking in power, right? But when you first heard you was pregnant with this call, you've had fearful thoughts where you say, am I able to do this? Am I able to carry this? That might actually hurt. You know, you've heard the stories about people who were walking in their power and this, that, and the other, and what they had to go through in order to become great. And you said, I don't know if I can handle that. And see, this is why we have to be careful who we admire too, because we don't know what they had to go through in order to get through this greatness. This is why you can't put your mouth on people, because you don't understand the journey that they had to take in order to get to their greatness. You
Mm-hmm.
can't judge them based on how they're responding in life, because they're not where they once were. They've let go of what they once were. So you can't have that expectation that they're going to respond the same way that they were when they heard the call, right? And so when we're saying this change, don't miss this change, we're saying, are you answering the call? Are you the person who heard the call? Are you the person that answered the call? Or are you the person that's walking and calling? Either way, you don't want to miss this change, right? Because what's going to happen is the mindset has to shift and change. When a mindset shifts and change, your habits of thought change. When your habits of thought change, your response change, your actions change. You end up growing and growing and growing into this being who's walking in a power. And we can't do that if we're so stuck in the way life is when we heard the call. And some of us, I've seen people who don't like change, right? And the idea of change makes them feel anxious, because it's the unknown that makes them, they don't know if they're going to like that. They don't know what they're going to do if this happens and that happens. They're so used to a certain way that the idea of something being different may make them feel a bit uncomfortable. But this is why we're saying, when you hear the call, understand that the strength to walk in that calling will allow you to be able to walk in that change despite being fearful of it, despite not knowing. It will give you the boldness and the strength that's necessary in order for that strength and that boldness to accommodate you along that change. The one thing we have to be willing to do is to have that discernment for what we need to let go in the process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we found out that we are pregnant with power, right? That's what we're going to say, pregnant with power. This is the change in the shift that we're talking about in this. You're pregnant with power. When you found out you were pregnant, you could not eat everything. You had your power to consider. You had the joy set before you to consider now. It's not, it's something to risk now here. So you can't sit there and keep going into some entertaining tomfoolery. You can't keep entertaining low vibrational thought. You can't keep entertaining the old things that you were used to, because before it was just you, but now it's you in power. So now you have to be aware of what's going in your body. And I mean, not just what you're eating in your mouth, what you're taking into your eyes, what you're taking into your ears. These are your gates. You now have to protect your gates, because everything is not meant to go in. Now you have to pick things that go in that brings nourishment. You have to watch things that nourish the soul. You have to hear things that nourish your spirit. You have to eat things that nourish your body, because it is important for us to be nourished along the way, because that nourishment helps contribute to our strength. And so when we're transitioning into this change, you understand letting go is going to require some boldness, because sometimes letting go can also cause guilt. And in order for us to not have that guilt of letting go, we have to have the joy set before us. We have to know that there's a greater purpose at hand. If we don't have the vision in our forefront while we are walking into this transition, then you allow guilt to set in. And if you allow guilt to set in, you'll allow its friends, fear and shame, to set in. And then the guilt, fear, and shame will always cause you to stay the same. It leaves no room for movement or growth. And so you start looking around and all your life is the same game, different face. You then broke up with a significant other. You done got another significant other, but they got the same attitude.
Mm.
You move from one house to the next, and you got the same neighbors. You go from one job to the next job, and it's the same group of people.
Mm, mm.
What has to change in order for you to access a different level? Your internal has to change.
Yes, yes.
You have to get in alignment with the greatness of your spirit in order to access your power. So we're saying don't miss this change by being awake and aware and having the willingness to stand up. And this is your time to shine. This is your time to live. This is your time to transition and empower. And if you are watching us today, you are pregnant. Now, you know you are pregnant, but which part of the pregnancy are you in? Did you answer the call? Are you the person that's walking in the calling, or did you just hear it? Either way, don't miss the change. Back to you, Dr. Toni.
Wow, Tishet, I'm getting a lot from what you're saying. Um, I'm going to use the pregnancy scenario because that was good. That explained all the notes that I was taking on what you were saying, because you said when you find out that you're pregnant, and when as soon as you said that, what came to me was it's possible to be pregnant and not know it.
Sure.
And that's why we're talking today about encouraging you not to miss this change, because it's possible that your life has changed and you're not aware of it and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know it. Go back and listen to the episode from last week. PSA, public service announcement. It's harvest time. Your season has changed. You're not sowing right now. You're supposed to be reaping. You've already sowed. When your season changes, you have to change your language. Those are some of the things I was writing down while you were talking. If you aren't, you say, if you aren't aware that change has come, that's important right there. This is why we're notifying you today, attractive thinker and visual encourager. Your season has changed. Write that down in your attractive thinker notebook. It's a real thing. You might say, well, Dr. Toni, everything looks the same. We're not looking outside. We don't govern our lives by what's going on outside of us. We understand that we are the change agent. We govern our lives by what's going on inside of us. Change happens inside first. And you can activate your own change by changing your attitude, changing your outlook, changing your perspective, changing your mindset. Those are the ways that attractive thinkers activate their own change. Change happens from within. You don't have to wait for a change or wait for seasons to change, or we put all these time frames on it, and I know what that's like because I grew up in a situation whereas it was dictated to me how to govern my life, and I was always waiting on something outside of me to happen in order for me to make a move, or in order for me to be blessed, or in order for me to reach my goal, or in order for me to accomplish something, or in order for me to access something or experience something. It was always something outside of me that I was waiting for. And then I grew to a matured to a place in my life whereas I was willing to take my power back and activate my own life and activate my own change and the results that I wanted for my life. So this is a change that you don't want to miss, because that change begins in you. So take your eyes off of what's going on around you and focus on what's going on in you. You have changed. Your outlook has changed. How you feel has changed. What you tolerate now or no longer tolerate has changed. We're here to notify you and to support you in opening your eyes to seeing that change has already taken place. It's just a matter of time. As soon as the change takes place in you, it's just a matter of time before you begin to see it outside of you, because you are the change agent. It has to happen inside of you first. When you talked about Tichet being pregnant, you said we are pregnant with power. And when you find out that you're pregnant, you have to change your diet. Prior to you saying that, I was already writing down the change I wanted to share with the attractive thinkers about not missing this change, because when things change and you're not aware of it, you continue seeking change when the
Mm-hmm.
change has already taken place. So
Yes.
we have to notify you of the things that you're doing that are a clear sign that you're not aware that it has already changed. You're not aware that your prayer has already been answered. You're not aware that you're already in a new space. You're not aware that what you were going through has already ceased. It has shifted. It has changed. It has stopped. It has dried up. You may not be aware of that. The language, your language may, if you're not aware that something has changed, your language doesn't reflect that change. You're still talking like you're trying to change, or you're still talking like the change hasn't taken place yet. And in doing so, go back and listen to our episode on this is your word for today. In doing so, when you begin to talk like, or should I say, when you're still talking like where you came from instead of where you're going or where you currently are, you're using the power of your words to kill the harvest,
Mm.
to prevent the change from, to block the change that's taking place in your life. You're already here at the place of change, and it's using your words is like taking a sword and cutting down what you've planted. It's like cutting it off at the root. When you're not aware that it has all the change has already taken place in your life, you don't hear what you need to hear to fully step into the change, because you all you hear is old conversation. And think about it, Tishet, if we're not aware that our season has changed, we're not changing the circle of people that we hang around. So the people, if we're still hanging around people from the prior season, they're actually reinforcing us in being who we used to be, and they're also killing our harvest. The conversation kills the harvest, because I always say people that we surround ourselves with, they have the potential to pull us back to where we came from, to keep us right where we are, or to launch us forward. That's the power of the people that you surround yourself with. They have that power to keep you right where you are. Think about it. Your circle of influence. As an entrepreneur, you share your dream. You're going to write a book or start a business. What word, what conversation comes up after you say that? That lets you know where your circle is. Are they people that are pulling you back to the past? Are they people that are keeping you right? When I say pulling you back to the past, meaning they'll say things like, what are you talking about writing a book? Nobody in your family's ever done that before. How about this? Nobody wants to read what you write, or you don't have anything to say. They're not going to buy your book. Or who do you think you are? Nobody in your family has ever written a book. Or what makes you think someone wants to read what you have to say? You didn't go to school for writing. You didn't go to school to articulate. You don't have a journalism degree. Think about that. So that's a circle of influence that's going to pull you back and keep you right where you are, pull you back to the way things used to be. You didn't get a degree, or you didn't even finish high school. When did finishing high school authorize someone to write on a piece of paper and share their story? You don't have to finish high school to do that. If you can write, if you can take a pen and put it to paper and write, or you can get on the computer and type, you can write a book. You don't need nobody's validation. You know what I've learned, to shed? Sometimes the very thing that we are ashamed of, or the very thing that's holding us back, is the very thing that will launch us forward. The very thing that, for example, singing. I'm a vocal artist, and I didn't go to school for it. And I could allow that to hold me back and say, oh, these dynamic singers out here, and they have fantastic and amazing voices. When you hear their story, they've had training, and they went to Juilliard, and they have had vocal coaches, and they already have songs out, streaming. I could allow that to stop me, but none of that gave me the voice that I have. I was born with it. I want you to understand that, attractive thinker. Yes, it's awesome to be skilled and trained, but don't get it twisted. Skills and training don't give you gifts.
Mm. Mhm.
Skills and training don't give you gifts. You come with them. And then we nurture them and we develop them. And you might say, well, Dr. Toni, I wasn't born with this or that or the other. If it's a desire of yours to do this or that or the other, then you have the potential and the power to do that. You have to just position yourself for that and just start doing what you need to do to develop that skill. It's just that simple. So I hope that you heard what I just shared with you, and you remove the limitations off of you moving forward and doing what your heart desires. Um, it's what we hear. So remember to go back and listen to the episode. This is your word for today. The next thing I wrote down, number 4, was It's possible to lose hope. See, when you don't recognize that your season has changed, you're continuing to put forth a lot of energy and effort, and you're losing hope. Scripture says hope deferred makes the heart sick. So you're beginning to feel weak because you keep putting forth effort and you're not seeing results because you don't recognize the change has already taken place, because the change takes place in you first before you see it outside of you. So in losing hope, you're losing faith. Your belief is getting weak. You start out with a strong belief. I believe that I can accomplish this, or I believe that I can experience this. And when you don't recognize that your season has changed, your faith gets weak. Maybe I'm going in the wrong direction, or maybe I don't deserve to have this, or maybe I can't write a book, or maybe you're right. Maybe this is not working because nobody really wants to hear what I have to say anyway. Or maybe this is not working because I'm really not a business owner. Or maybe this is not working because I need to stay in my lane and stay at the financial level that I'm at. Maybe it's not for me to have financial wealth or freedom, or whatever it is your goal is. Maybe it's not for me to transform my life. I want you to think about it. Maybe I'm pushing too hard, or going too far. Maybe I just need to be satisfied with who I am right now and just thank God I made it this far. You need to think about that when it comes down to change. A lot of times we experience these feelings and thoughts because we're not recognizing the season that we're in. We're thinking that nothing has changed because we're basing it on our outside circumstances, when the change takes place inside of you first. You think differently. You start seeing things differently. You don't see things the way you used to, or the things that used to be funny are no longer funny to you. You're changing. The people you used to hang out with, you can't find a reason to hang out with them anymore. You're changing. That's what change looks like. Or you're frustrated with things that used to bring you joy. You're changing. You're growing. You're evolving. You're maturing. But most of the time, Tichet, people are looking forward for a change that happens outside of them, not understanding that they are the change agent. If anything is to change outside of you, it has to change in you first. And that change has started right now. It's taking place right now. We're here to support you and not missing the change that's taking place in your life right now. So one of the other things I wrote down to Shet was, you can change. I mentioned that you can change your own season by changing your perspective. So write that down, attractive thinker, in your notebook. I can change my own season by changing my perception of it. I can change my own season by changing my perception of it. So you mentioned about being pregnant. And I said, it's possible to be pregnant and not know it. So it's also possible for a change to take place in your life and you not be aware of it. So Tichet said, you have to be aware. You have to pay attention to your life. So now attractive think, instead of looking outside of yourself for the change, turn inward and begin to look inside. What inside of you has changed? Your attitude, maybe, your perspective, your heart, your boundaries. Have you set new boundaries? Your toleration level, maybe that's changed. The things you used to tolerate, you no longer tolerate. You don't have the patience for it anymore. You don't have the heart or the energy for it anymore. And you just shut it down. You say, I'm not tolerating that anymore. That's change. That's major change. It's fantastic and amazing change. It's worthy of noting that change in your life. You now have, Tichet said, you now have to protect your gate. You have no room for things that don't nourish your soul.
Mhm.
You now have to protect your gate. That's changed. See, back in the day, you used to allow any and everything in your gate. Conversations that weren't supportive of your goals, um, invitations going to go here, there, or the other that wasn't really supporting your goals. See, you've changed when the things you used to do are no longer pleasing to you. I'm here to show you what change looks like because you may not recognize that. I remember so many times, Tichet, in my life that I became frustrated with the things that I used to tolerate. I'll put it that way. When I say used to tolerate, meaning, and when I get an invitation to go somewhere, even if I didn't really feel like going. I would go anyway because number one, they invited me. Number two, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Number three, this and that and the other. All that jive junk that really doesn't help us get to where doesn't support our authenticity and us being our highest selves. All of that stuff that we tolerate and scrape into our lives and allow and tolerate, that stuff, all of that stuff was what's holding us back. Doing things, people ask you to do something, doing things that you don't want to do, going to meetings, being in positions that make you cringe while you're driving there. All of that stuff is preventing us from changing and growing and evolving into the higher versions of ourselves. So you have to get rid of all of that. You have to set boundaries and check in with your feelings. Attractive thinkers, we already know this because we talk about this. Visual encouragers, we already know this because we talk about this all the time. Checking in with how you feel about a decision. Don't just be making decisions based on how other people feel. What about how you feel? How is that decision sitting with you? How is it making you feel? When you made the decision, did your peace go out the window? Think about that. Where did your peace go when you made that decision? Because your peace is priceless. It's something that, in the Attractive Thinker experience on Amazon, we talk about that. Your heart matters. How you feel matters. And you have to protect that. Make sure you read that chapter in the book. It's very, very important. And it's comforting. It's healing to know that you can actually place a guard around your heart so that you can have the clarity. You hold on to your courage and confidence. Do you know when you don't have a guard around your heart, people can steal your courage and your confidence? They shoot down your ideas, the things that are in your heart, the desires that you love, your passions and your drives. They can make it feel like it's nothing because you don't have a guard around your heart. When you have a guard around your heart, everybody can't have access to your treasure. So we're here to notify you today that a change has already taken place in your life, and we don't want you to miss it. Tichet, talk to us. I know your wheels are spinning. I see your pen going to that paper.
Yes, one of the things I want to remind everybody while we are in transition, whatever place you're in this pregnancy with power,
Mm-hmm.
to all of us can make sure that we understand that our peace is our power.
Mm.
Our peace is our power, and
Mm.
so that means my peace is my priority. We have to have that in play. If our peace is our power and we make it a priority, so when things come into your life to disrupt your peace, that's taking away your power,
Mm-mm.
right? And so we have to understand that our peace is worthy of protection in this moment. So you talked about protecting the heart. So again, we go with being pregnant, right? You protect your baby. You have a strong belief about your power that you have about your baby. You'll protect it as if it's a little child, as if it's something that you have responsibility of. You have responsibility of your power, right? And so most people, when they're pregnant with a physical thing, they'll say, okay, I have to protect it. It'll give them the reason or the excuse to turn down some things. We'll say, oh, I'm pregnant, I can't drink like that, or I'm pregnant, I can't get intoxicated, or I'm pregnant, I can't interact with stressful situations, or I'm pregnant, I can't argue back and forth, or I'm pregnant, I can't do this heavy lifting, or I'm pregnant, I can't do this and I can't do that, right? We have all of these things that we can't do, regardless of whether you're having a normal pregnancy or abnormal pregnancy. There's just some things that a pregnant woman should not be doing, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to convert that over to the spiritual realm, right? There's some things a person pregnant with power should not be doing. And that's the heavy lifting, that excessively heavy lifting the heaviness of everybody all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the heavy lifting that causes you to suppress yourself or causes you to break your own back. Doing the heavy lifting that is not in alignment with you, right? There's some stuff you can't do while you're pregnant. When I was pregnant, I couldn't lift everybody's heaviness. I had to take that responsibility off of me and take care of myself so that when I give birth, I'm strong enough to give birth, and then I can go back to helping people lift the heaviness so they can create a new vision of themselves. But I had to do it for me first.
That's right.
I had to let the heaviness of everybody else go in order to maintain my strength so I can give birth to the person you see now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I had to make my peace my priority. And also, Dr. Toni, you talked about letting go of certain things. You talked about letting go of certain things, right? I'm here to also tell you, if you're a person who need an excuse to to do things, and you might not know you're pregnant, you might not know things are changing, it is okay to outgrow a person, place, or thing.
Mm.
It is okay to outgrow it, right? It is okay when you feel something in your spirit shift, when you're dealing with a person, or when you're going to a place, or when you have a certain thing, right? When you feel that, pay attention, good attention to that.
Mm.
Not just let it fly by. Oh, it's nothing. Maybe I just was having a bad day. No, why? Why did you feel that? Because if you don't answer it at that point, it's going to get louder and louder and louder.
Mm.
When you don't answer it when it first call, the thing that's going to make you answer that is going to be pain. So you got to get to the
Mm.
point where you don't need pain in order for you to answer certain things. You got
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see it at first. Listen, you don't have to hit me with a truck for me to understand that a truck is coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'll listen from the sound, from the vibration. I'll feel the vibration long far before the truck get here, so I can move myself out of the way, so I don't become a victim to being ran over, right? So you have to get so good at paying attention
Mm.
that you're willing to understand the differences in vibration when it comes to people, places, and things. When you go into a place, what is that energy?
Mm-hmm.
Don't ignore that. Get good at having that discernment. Get good at understanding that you might have outgrown that place. You might have loved that. Just because you love that place before does not mean you have to always love that place. Sometimes people, places, and things are in your life for a reason and a season. You have to know what's the season and
Mm-hmm.
what's the reason,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything is not always forever, and that's where we mistakenly hoard things, because we think we're supposed to hold on to everything forever. We cannot confuse history with connection.
Mm.
We have to understand that divine connection is as important as peace. When you have a connection to something, that means there's movement between you and that person, that place, or that thing. If it's that energy in between you, that person, a place, or thing, then something has to shift. Something is going to change. Something is going to cry out. Your spirit has to have movement. Everything moves, right? If you ever look in the spiritual realm, everything has movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's no movement in something, then that means it's dead. So
Mm.
we have to
Mm.
understand, is this thing dead? That's something we can resurrect, or is it dead? That's something we can let go, because everything that's dead don't need resurrection.
Mm.
There's some relationships we have to allow to go in the grave. There's some places that we used to go that we have to allow to go in the grave. You don't have to revive all old relationships. Some of those stuff was toxic, and they need to stay where they are, and that's in your past. When your peace is priority, you are not afraid to say no to some things. You are not afraid to say no to going to some places. You are not afraid to say no to interacting with some people. It has nothing to do with being selfish or stuck up or what have you. It has everything to do with understanding the importance of self-care so that you can birth forth a power that the world can benefit from. It is necessary for you to say no to some things. It's necessary for you to block some things. It's necessary for you to protect your heart. Why do we understand protecting our house more than protecting our hearts?
Mm.
Why do we understand protecting our watches and our jewelry before we understand the reason for protecting our heart? Don't we understand that the value that we bring comes from the one thing that has the greatest value, and that's our heart? We have to protect it because out of the issues of it is life. And so we have to put, like you said, put that guard on our heart. We have to have not a guard up that things can't enter in, but a guard so that we know what should enter in.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to block out the low vibration, but you don't want your guard up so much that you block out the high vibration.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying put barbed wire and everything. We're saying have enough power to know that if a person knocking on your door is not worthy to come in, they are not coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you need to always be at home.
Mm-mm.
Which means you have to always be logged in. So you got to stop doing things that log you out in life, right? You eat food, you ever eat a certain kind of processed food? We've all been to these places where they serve you these processed food, and the next thing you know, you're eating it, and you might be enjoying the taste of it, and the next thing you know, you like this. You have to understand that that's you logging out, right? And so when you're logged out, and then somebody comes to your place, how will they know whether or not they can come in if no one's home? So the thing is to have that connection, be awake and aware, be alive, so that people know that your home is protected, your heart is protected. You're not going to just come up in here and do any kind of way. I am not Burger King. You cannot have it your way in here. Right? You have to understand who you are and who you are not. And so when you start interacting with people and you start interacting with places, you start setting boundaries. Healthy boundaries is important. Let me tell you something. When you start setting healthy boundaries, there's a peace that comes with that automatically.
Yes, my
It's
God.
part of the package. It's part of the package because when you start blocking out negative people, negative ideas, and they don't have nothing, they always got something going on. They always in a negative stance. When you start blocking that people out, you start blocking out that energy too. You start getting to know your real energy when you don't have all that other energy surrounding you. If the world is speaking too loud for you, then it's time for you to go inward. Right? It's time for you to go inward so you can hear the inner man more than the outer man. The inner man should be the loudest of them all.
Yeah.
But if everybody's voice is in your head, you need to consider, where's your voice? Who did you give the deed to your happiness to? Who did you sign over your power to? What is your decision-making process? Who did you give the power of your decision-making to? Right? And then when someone gives you an opinion, you have to understand to always, always, always to consider the source. You consider the source in everything. Who's knocking on your door? Consider the source. Everybody's not ready for your type of conversation. Everybody's not ready to be in your present. And that's not to say that you're better, but to say that you're better. There's a difference in that, right? We're not competing against other people. We're just trying to be our better selves. We deserve that. We came here for that. Let me tell you something. When you start getting into a place of peace and you start understanding how these physical bodies work, and you start understanding that we have these physical bodies so that we can enjoy the fruits of the creation, you will stop getting caught up in minimal things and start enjoying being. Start enjoying the fact that you can feel alive, that you can breathe, that you can think. You start enjoying the fact that you can sit down. Nothing enjoys sitting down more like after you've been on your feet for 8 hours. So you have to experience pain in order for you to enjoy a seat. So what I'm saying is, when we say don't miss this change, we're saying enjoy the seat anyway. Don't wait for pain to enjoy the seat. But if you had to go to pain, now enjoy your seat. Right? Pain will help you to produce, because pain will cause you to get up and move. Because as long as you were comfortable, you would stand there. As long as you were comfortable, you was willing to sit and keep going through the same thing over and over again. So if you have a place, let's say you might have a job or a place that you go through, and all of a sudden stuff changed, and all of a sudden it's miserable there. Could it be to produce in order for you to get up and move? In
Mm.
order for you to get up and move, it produced misery.
Mm.
You might be living somewhere and you're not happy at that place. Could it be because the calling to move has come?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be that it's making you so uncomfortable that now you have no choice but to move because you
Mm-hmm.
can't take it no more?
Mm.
As long as you can tolerate it, you was okay with staying there. But when it get to the point where you can't tolerate it, now you have the strength to move. Pain will produce strength.
Yes.
But we have to get to the point where we don't have to wait for pain to move. Just the mere fact that your peace is disrupted should be enough. No excuse needed. The fact
Mm-hmm.
that you don't want to do things should be enough. No excuse needed. If I don't want to go to a certain place, then that should be enough reason to not go to a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because then you get there and find out why you don't want to come. How many times you go somewhere and say, I knew I should have stayed home. We gotta end,
Absolutely.
we got to go on that knowing. I knew I should have. See, that should have, would have, and could have.
Mm.
I would rather sit home and then let somebody tell me why I'm glad I stay home than me to go to find out and be miserable.
Yeah.
And then you have to undo the reason why
Mm-hmm.
you ain't listen to your spirit. You gotta listen to your spirit.
Yes.
When your spirit speaks, it don't need no justification. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just go for it. Just trust the higher self and go for it. It doesn't need to explain to you why. It has saved my life in so many if I had stood there and questioned my spirit every time it said something, I would not be here. There's some times where the spirit would say, get in the car and go. And I couldn't stand there and be like, well, why? Everything looks fine all around me.
Mm.
I had to go get in the car and get in the car now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was urgent because
Mm-hmm.
my spirit said it for me to find out later why.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be on the other side. We
Yes.
don't want to be on the side of misery, always finding out why we should have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we like, I could have, and if I did it, and I would have, and this. No, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Get up and go when your spirit say get up and go. Stay still when your spirit say stay
My
still.
God.
But
Mm-hmm.
always be at peace either way.
Mm-hmm.
Coming or going, be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to understand that when our peace is our priority and we protect it, that we're protecting a power as well. Another thing you talked about, Dr. Toni, is you talked about some of the gifts, and I wanted to let people know that the gifts that we have come with the package of peace.
Mm-hmm.
When you are in peace, the gifts exposes. It exposes more gifts in you. You start finding more things that you find you're able to do when you are at peace. When you are accepting of the change and you start walking in that change, you start being exposed to more peace. Because in life, our goal is to uncover. What are we uncovering? We are uncovering the truth. We are uncovering our power. We are uncovering our purpose. We are walking through life uncovering our entire existence. We are uncovering the creation and we're acknowledging the creator along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so we have to understand that there's some things that come in the package of being pregnant with power.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff that comes with it. And so even though we may not understand it always, we just have to trust that whatever is there for us is going to be great. It's going to be delicious. It's going to be good. And we have to let that be enough reason for us to protect our peace and to get up and go and to be aware and to make sure that we stand our ground.
Mm-hmm.
We have to give ourselves permission to stand our ground. There should be a level of standard that is required for us to interact with a
Mm-hmm.
certain person, place, or thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say set that standard, it goes back to boundaries. Because if you don't set boundaries or standards, people will treat you any old kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't set a standard, you'll accept anything just for the sake of having something. And we told you weeks ago, we're not doing that anymore. We're not accepting anything just to have something.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have nothing if I can't have everything. You
Mm.
know, and so we have to understand our worth and our value in order for us to have that standard in place, and in order for us to have it in effect where we don't sit there and sacrifice our standard every time somebody can't meet it. So when somebody come into your presence and they can't meet their standard, we say, oh well, I was just being too uptight, so yeah, I'll just this one time I'll just let you go ahead and abuse me mentally.
Mm.
No, 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 no.
Mm.
That standard is set for a reason. If you can't talk to me like you have some sense, you can't talk to me. We have to get to that much value for ourselves.
Yes.
I'm not going to sacrifice my spirit so you can feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is a lot of us is sacrificing our spirit so other people can feel better who would not do the same. They
Mm-hmm.
would not make the same sacrifices. I said last week, we got to stop crossing rivers and oceans for people who wouldn't cross jump puddles for you.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who values you will never, never go below your standard.
Mm.
Anybody that value you would never subject you to something that will depreciate your value.
Mm-hmm.
They would never, because anybody who appreciates your value knows your power and knows how precious your heart is, and they will protect it right along with you. They'll sit there and say that person don't have the best interest in your heart. You might want to let them go, or you might not want to go to that place. That's not for you. I went there. That's not for you. You know, because everything ain't for everybody, and so we have to be careful, not just about other people. We have to be careful about ourselves. Self-care is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care is not being selfish in the negative connotation that it has with it. Self-care is necessary, because how are we going to produce our power if, or uncover our power, I'll say, if we don't take care of the inner man that's within us, if we're always subjecting it to abuse mentally, physically, psychologically, verbally, and sometimes we self-abusing.
Mm.
Making you go somewhere where your spirit is saying no is a form of abuse, because you're going against your own will.
Mm.
To me, that's sin. That's sin.
Mm.
Going against the will of your spirit, that's sin. Because what happens then, it ends up being fear, guilt, and shame. Sin is always going to bring in fear, guilt, and shame.
Mm.
And then you got to do extra work to take it off.
Mm.
And then you feel like you're off the tracks. We don't want to go through that. We don't have to.
Mm.
Now we know that we have to protect our peace at all things. We have to stay awake and aware. We have to know we're pregnant with power, keep the joy set before us, understanding that pain does produce power,
Mm-hmm.
and we're uncovering ourselves and our entire existence along the way. And that is worthy of us acknowledging this change that we're going through, regardless of which stage you are in life. All that we know is that we're moving forward. Back to you, Dr. Toni.
Wow, don't miss this change, attractive thinker and visual encouragers. Don't miss this change. Tichet, you asked a question that was very defining. It stood out to me. You said, how is it that we can protect our homes more than we protect our hearts? And immediately it brought me back to what I shared earlier with the attractive thinkers and visual encouragers. It's easy to look outside of yourself for the change instead of inside. And the reason why we would put more emphasis on and protect our homes than we do our heart, again, because we're looking outside of ourselves instead of inside of ourselves. But the moment that you begin to value the inside more than you value the outside, that's a game changer. Everything changes when you realize that you are a treasure, a sacred treasure to be valued and guarded and cherished. When you realize that you are who you've been looking for, when you realize the change that you're seeking is in you, that changes the game. It changes your season. You begin to see things differently. You begin to approach things differently. Begin to believe differently. Don't miss this change, attractive thinker. Tichet, when you said Why do we value? You also said certain types of people you wouldn't allow to have access to you. You just don't open the door and let any and everybody into your home. And when you said that, I thought about worthy. You know, some of the boundaries that we set up, or some of the keys that give people access to us, is they're worthy of our presence. So worthy opens that door. If you're standing there and someone wants access to you, and you realize that they're not supportive of you or your goals, they don't contribute to your ideas. You know, being worthy of that is the key to give them access to your heart and your energy and your space. So it's not how you feel or your familiar feelings about that particular person. It's about, are they supportive of my dreams? Do we support each other's dreams? Do I feel a burning desire or a fire or something ignite or inspire when I'm in their presence? Am I more peaceful? Or is my peace disturbed when I'm in their presence? Don't miss this change. It all happens from within. Dr. Toni Hatton here, so excited about this message. Your identity coach and get to the root specialist, here to support you in not missing the change that has already taken place in your life. Visit our website, theattractivethinker.guru, and grab your freebies there. We have some free resources there to support you with mental healing, mental clarity, and mindset maintenance. Get your Attractive Thinker experience on Amazon, the 726-page transformational experience. It's a hardcover book and it's in full color, because I love you, and everybody who knows me knows that I love to give gifts that reflect something, that means something, that have an impact. So this is a treasure that you can keep for generations to come, that will really support the transformation that you desire for your life. Tichet, tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, the visual encourager.
Absolutely. You can find me on my website at www.visualencouragement.com. We provide mental support for movers and shakers, for trailblazers, pathfinders, and groundbreakers. All of you visionaries who desire to move mountains but need help lifting the heaviness so that they can create a new vision for themselves. Go to my contact us page, put in your information. Let me know how I can uplift you, enlighten you, and encourage you so that you can live a life of fulfillment beyond the break. Again, that's www.visualencouragement.com. See you soon.
Awesome, attractive thinkers. You always hear us say our life's work, that's to make your life better. Remember, it is not what you're going through, it's how you view it. Think attractively. I will see you soon.